It hovers a foot from your face, not near the feeder, not near the flowers, just there, at the same window it always comes to, looking at you. You don't move, neither does it. For a moment, it feels less like watching an animal and more like being seen by one. Then it's gone, and the question stays behind. Did it know you, or did it just notice something? Millions of people who feed hummingbirds have felt this same moment at this same kind of window. The bird seems to pause, to look, to choose. It comes back the next day and the day after that, and somewhere in there, it starts to feel personal. Here's what makes this question genuinely interesting. The answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's something stranger and more honest than either. Let's start with what we actually know. Hummingbirds have some of the most precise memory ever documented in a bird this small. In field studies, researchers found they could remember the exact location of a single rewarding flower after visiting it only once. Not days of learning, once. They don't just remember where, they remember when. Flowers refill on their own schedule, and hummingbirds track that schedule for multiple locations at the same time, timing their visits so they rarely arrive too early or too late. This kind of memory is supported by something visible inside their brains, the hippocampal formation, the brain region tied to spatial memory, is dramatically larger in hummingbirds than in most other birds their size. Their whole cognitive world seems built around one task: never forget a good flower. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe what feels like recognition is just this same memory, applied to the window you stand at and the feeder you fill. But before we go further, there's a question worth asking first. Why would evolution build a brain this precise around flowers and not around people? Think about what a flower actually demands. Nectar isn't constant. A bloom that's full in the morning may be empty by afternoon. A rival bird might drain it before you return. Missing that window doesn't just cost a meal. For a creature burning energy as fast as a hummingbird does, it can cost survival itself. A person, by comparison, has never been that kind of pressure. We don't refill. We don't run out. There was never a reason for evolution to build the same precision around us that it built around a flower bed. So, if hummingbird memory evolved around flowers, not faces, what exactly is happening when one hovers in front of your window and seems to look? To answer that, we have to understand what a hummingbird actually sees. Their vision is extraordinary in ways that have nothing to do with recognizing faces. They perceive colors humans simply don't have access to at all, including combinations of ultraviolet light layered with color, shades with no name in our language because our eyes were never built to hold them. Flowers themselves often carry hidden ultraviolet patterns invisible to us entirely, guiding a hummingbird toward the nectar the way a lit sign guides a person toward a doorway. We simply can't see the sign. Their eyes also process motion so quickly that the world likely appears to move in something close to slow motion compared to how we experience it. A wing beat we can't even follow may look to them almost unhurried. But visual detail is a different story. Their eyes are built for speed and color, not fine resolution. Researchers estimate a hummingbird's visual acuity at something closer to what a human would experience looking through a fairly blurred lens. sharp enough to catch motion and color instantly, but not built for fine detail at any real distance. At the distance most people stand from a feeder, a hummingbird's eyesight is unlikely to resolve individual facial features with any real precision. It can see you standing at that same window. It almost certainly cannot see your face the way another person would. So if it isn't recognizing your face, what is it responding to? Most likely the same thing it responds to with a flower, a location, a pattern. The consistency of a person standing in roughly the same spot, at roughly the same time, near a reliable source of food, that's not nothing. Learning to associate a location, a shape, even a color of clothing with safety and food is a real cognitive feat. It's just not the same thing as knowing who you are. Here's where it gets interesting though, because not every bird stops at that boundary. Some birds do recognize individual humans specifically. Mockingbirds have been shown to distinguish one person from another near their nests, growing more defensive towards someone who has approached before, even when that person changes clothing. Crows and magpies can remember individual human faces associated with a threat, sometimes for years afterward, recognizing them even in a crowd, even after long stretches of time apart. So why not hummingbirds? The honest answer is that no one has tested it directly. But there's a reasonable explanation for why their memory evolved in a different direction. A mockingbird defending a nest, or a crow remembering a threat, is protecting something immediate and personal, something worth remembering a face for, sometimes for years. A hummingbird chasing nectar is solving a different problem entirely, one about resources, not relationships, and one that resets every single day rather than lasting a lifetime. Their memory became extraordinary at the exact thing that kept them alive, not the thing we wish it noticed. That doesn't mean the moment you experienced wasn't real. It means the explanation is different than it feels. Psychologists have a name for part of what happens next on our side of the glass. When an animal behaves consistently around us, especially when that behavior feels attentive, we tend to interpret it the way we'd interpret another person. A pause becomes a look. A return becomes a choice. This isn't a flaw in how you think. It's simply how humans are built, wired to find intention and connection almost everywhere we look, especially in moments that already carry some emotional weight. Standing at a window, waiting, hoping something small will notice you back. So here is where the two stories meet. Science can tell you, with real confidence, that a hummingbird remembers your yard, your window, your feeder, with a precision that would be remarkable in an animal 100 times its size. It can tell you the bird likely returns to a location, not a person, drawn by consistency and reward, rather than familiarity with you specifically. What science cannot yet tell you is whether something more is happening in that half second of stillness when it hovers at that same window and looks, and you feel looked at in return. That question hasn't been asked in a lab. Maybe it never fully will be. Some questions stay open, not because no one has looked, but because the answer would require watching something too small, too fast, too fleeting to fully measure. Maybe that's the part worth sitting with. Not that the mystery got solved, not that it didn't, but that a creature with a brain lighter than a paperclip carries a map of the world so precise, so complete, that your window has become part of it. Not just any window, yours. Whether it knows your face is still an open question. What it clearly knows is exactly where to find you. And so, tomorrow morning or the morning after, it will likely come back to that same window, hover in that same place, and look at you again the way it always has. Hummingbirds aren't the only birds built around flowers this way. Sunbirds in Africa and Asia and honeycreepers in Hawaii evolved along strikingly similar lines. Tiny bodies, long, thin bills, hovering flight, and sharp memory for bloom locations. None of them show confirmed recognition of individual humans either. That pattern across unrelated species evolving the same solution in different parts of the world is itself a kind of evidence. When completely different birds on different continents all converge on remembering flowers with precision instead of faces, it suggests this isn't an oversight in hummingbirds specifically. It's simply what nectar-feeding life selects for, over and over, wherever it evolves. The flower, not the face, has always been the thing worth remembering. Which brings us back to that window and that half second of stillness and the question that started all of this. Again, it's worth being honest about something else too. Even the most solid finding here, the hummingbird's enlarged memory center in the brain, comes mostly from a handful of comparative studies, not hundreds of them. Good science, but still a young field, still being tested and refined, still capable of surprising researchers as more work gets done. That's not a weakness. That's simply what real science looks like while it's happening, incomplete in places, cautious about overstating what isn't yet proven, willing to say, "I don't know," instead of guessing. A channel built around wonder should be honest about that too, not just about hummingbirds, but about the limits of what anyone can currently claim to know. And still, none of that makes the bird at your window any less remarkable. If anything, the honesty makes the wonder feel more earned. And somehow, that turns out to be its own kind of remarkable. Not a smaller one, just a different one than the story we started with. Because wonder doesn't have to end where certainty does. Sometimes the honest answer is the more interesting one. Tell me in the comments, has a hummingbird ever looked at you like that at your own window and made you wonder the same thing? I read every one. There's no need to make this more mystical than it already is, and no need to make it smaller either. A hummingbird returning to the same window morning after morning is already an extraordinary act of memory and precision, whether or not anything more sits behind its eyes. That's not a compromise between science and wonder, it's simply where they were always going to meet. Not a lecture, not a myth, something quieter than both. Nothing more.